increasingly moldy over their next days.
What's up, DG? Your buddy, hey, your boy. And today, we got a nice video for you, man. I put fruit flies in a closed jar for 4 years. Now, before we even get into the video, man, make sure you follow me on Instagram. Yeah, _DmantraTv. Go ahead and follow. And also, make sure you like this video right now. I'm gonna let you wait on it. Or I'm gonna wait on it. I'm gonna give you some time. I'm gonna wait. That's enough time. Thank you. And for the ones who didn't, I know who you are. I know. Anywho, let's go and get to the video, man. This man done got some flies in a jar? What type of nonsense is this? It's finna be diabolical. Let's get into it.
Good day. In this video, we will be taking a long, hard look in the mirror. I mean, at this glass jar.
All of that looks just like it just looks so. You know, and it just look. You know, so I don't wait. Pause? Nah, that ain't pause. But all that just don't look good to me, bro. I ain't gonna lie, bro. Them fruit flies are gone. They're gone. They're past gone. Gone. But hey, listen. I'm just saying.
Jar, which has been closed airtight for 4 years now. As you can see, it is filled with plants and a bunch of slimy green growth. But how did we get here? Well, we'll have to go back in time to a little over 4 years ago, when I managed to catch about a dozen fruit flies using glass jars stored in the freezer.
So you just going around catching fruit flies, putting them in jars, huh? Yeah, you need to be watched, buddy. You're on radar. You got you under surveillance. You just going around catching flies, huh? Then again, hey, you know what? Hey, then again, hey, keep doing what you're doing.
They would need a nice house, of course, so I took this much bigger glass jar, added 2 nice plants, Coffea arabica, which I knew from experience would probably do well in a closed and humid environment, and Irisine herbstii, which I had no experience with whatsoever, placed in a little pot right in the center of the jar. As a source of food, I added a banana peel as well as a banana beer yeast smoothie, all of which fruit flies really like to eat. And in they went, the Drosophila melanogaster. Quite a pretty home, if I do say so myself. A day later, they were flying around in their humid home, and another day later, the smoothie was starting to form a moat around the plant pot, and starting getting increasingly moldy over their next days. After a week, the plants weren't doing great, but the fruit flies were, because they had already procreated, with loads of larvae crawling around. After only a single week, the first new adult fruit fly hatched, the first to be born in the closed ecosystem. And the amount of pupae boomed. More were definitely on their way, as can be seen by all the tiny larvae on the banana peel. 2 days after
I ain't gonna lie, y'all ever seen them type of things in y'all, like, on y'all trash can or like in the fridge at some point when you don't really clean your fridge? I don't know like that, bro. I've had my experiences. I didn't know what the heck they were. I thought they were called maggots. He's calling them something else, but I guess it's the same thing. But yeah, bro, you ever had that experience?
this, the plants, but especially the Irisine herbstii, also known as bloodleaf, were in really bad shape, but that didn't bother the fruit flies.
Well, not if I don't give it the right structure. If I just use a chat app and copy-paste those into a spreadsheet.
11 days after this closed ecosystem was made, this airtight jar was filled with flying insects. Just 2.5 weeks later, the jar looked completely different and not particularly pretty anymore. The bloodleaf almost completely died, with just a few tiny living leaves growing. The coffee plant looked a little better, but also had a lot of dead leaves. The glass was filled with dead flies sticking to it. Some of these are the first flies that were added in here, the pioneers if you will, and those died of old age. However, many of them are flies that were born here, about 3 weeks prior, and although they could have died,
DMG, make sure you're subscribed, and if you really want to support me more, make sure you join up for a membership. You get more access, more exclusive content. Also, make sure all those notifications are turned on, and I believe this is the cost of the lowest membership. So if you really want to support me more, then click back to the show.
died from old age, their lifespan spanning from usually 4 to 6 weeks, more was probably at play. I think I added way too much dead organic matter in the form of the banana peel and smoothie. As we saw, it quickly started decaying. This process might have released toxic gases and potentially even depleted the oxygen levels. Not to an extent that everything was killed, as the plants are still sort of alive and there's also still some adult flies as well as larvae, but it could have killed a significant part of the population. I'm still not sure what really happened. At this point, the green transformation of the jar was starting. A lot of algae started growing on the glass, fulfilling the same role as the plants, producing oxygen while taking up carbon dioxide and turning inorganic nutrients into organic molecules, aka food. This was nice to see, as our plants really weren't doing well. 3 months later, the coffee plant seemed to be doing a little better, with many new leaves growing, and miraculously, the blood leaf is still sort of alive. Moreover, an entirely new plant started to grow. The earth in the plant pot was covered by
How is this plant growing with no water? Like, am I tripping? Like, it ain't supposed to be growing. It's supposed to be dead too. You feel me? Like, I'm just not understanding that. And this man is capturing flies and murdering them. If you think about it, he's murdered like 10. But then again, I ain't gonna lie. I mean, who really care about flies? I mean, you know what I'm saying? But then again, I guess they decompose stuff or something like that. I don't know. Man, listen, man. Hey, bro. Hey, bro, I need a couple flies for my video. Shoot, you got it. Well, no, not saying I got...
moss, which must have emerged from some spores or tiny plant parts in the soil. And, unfortunately, at this point all the fruit flies had died, for whatever reason, thus marking the end of the fruit fly presence in the fruit fly jar. Possible cause of death? Banana overload. This did not mark the end of the ecosystem itself, however. In fact, it was still developing. All of the moisture that was inside the banana and the smoothie, as well as in the soil of the plant pot and to some extent in the air, has now formed a surprisingly deep layer of water, especially after all the fruit fly food decomposed. As you can see, it is not exactly sterile. It is filled with these tiny white organisms, while actually they are really large for what they are, at least. These are rotifers, a large group of microbes, many of which aren't visible with the naked eye. They probably emerged here as some, or at least one individual managed to make its way into the water, likely from the soil in the plant pot, as a resting egg, which can actually stay dormant for several decades. The water provided ideal living conditions, with plenty of food, without any competition. This led to explosive population growth, all stemming from one or just a few individuals. Pretty cool. But there's more. There's been another population explosion, of a completely different species. These tiny dark globular springtails, which are very cute. They probably have a very similar story to the rotifers, just not an aquatic story. And these are actual animals. Like the rotifers though, springtails can reproduce through parthenogenesis, or asexual reproduction, so basically cloning. Like the rotifer population, this entire springtail population could be the progeny of one individual, or just a few. And these two saw a lot of food and little competition. And these two probably came from the plant pot soil. Whatever killed the fruit flies did not kill the springtails. Or maybe the springtails are here now because the conditions in the jar are livable again, but there's just no fruit flies left to do the living. Another 2 months later, when the ecosystem was half a year old, not much changed, except for the emergence of an entirely new plant species. And another 4 months after this, for whatever reason, both the plants were doing really great, with lots of new growth.
With no water?
A tiny new plant had also grown and the moss also looked very healthy. Maybe because it was spring. When the ecosystem was a year old, both plants were doing great. In fact, the bloodleaf had now grown bigger than the coffee plant and even formed an aerial root. The new plant was also still there, but the moss wasn't looking great and had partly turned brown.
This ain't making sense.
The layer of water was still filled with algae, but not completely filled with rotifers anymore. They didn't go extinct, but I think their population crashed.
How much would you guys drink that for? Gotta give me a solid 100,000. Nah, I ain't gonna lie. Cause you might die. You might get. You ain't gonna make it after you drink that way. That'll look. I ain't gonna lie, a couple 100,000. I might just take a sip. You know what I mean? Nah, I ain't gonna lie, bro. I'm not drinking that. That's diabolical. Nah. But y'all drink that. Y'all know y'all gonna drink that. Yeah, you can. I mean, I know you gonna drink.
Because it grew too quickly in the first place. They could reproduce really quickly because they had no competitors until they became their own competition. Interestingly, the same did not happen to the springtails. There's still a bunch of them left. And even after a year, a new species managed to appear. These are mites. There were a few of them in the jar, but not a whole lot. These just might be predatory mites, in which case they just might prey on springtails, which would be a really interesting dynamic. Wow, quite a history, but this was all information you might have had already. So, let's go back to the present and look at this ecosystem 3 years after the latest documented events.
Get exclusive Mortal Kombat 2 wallpapers for your PC.
Gosh.
I don't have to tell you that a lot can happen in 3 years, even in these closed environments which, perhaps luckily for them, form a world of their own. Not interacting with the ecosystem you and I live in, but existing as little ecological wonders encased in transparent rock. And I feel honored to host some of them on my windowsill. Anyway, let's not get too sentimental too quickly and look at the jar. By now it's looking a little more wild. This is the side of the jar that wasn't facing the window for the past, well, I don't know exactly how long, but for the past period of time. As you can see, there's now a large network of aerial roots growing from the plants onto the glass and also down into the layer of water. Years ago, we saw the first aerial root coming from the bloodleaf. As far as I can tell, all of these roots come from that same plant. The reason it's growing so many aerial roots probably has to do with the fact that the soil in the pot is very moist. If it's too wet, gas exchange can be made difficult, so it resorts to growing aerial roots. Nifty. This side of the jar is also covered in some sort of slimy growth, at least partially filled with algae, likely made up from the remnants of the dead flies and leaves that were on the glass. It would be really interesting to take a sample of this to see what microbes might be living in the slime, but I don't want to open the ecosystem, so you'll have to resort to your imagination. This is the side of the jar that was facing the window. There's almost none of that slimy substance here and also way less aerial roots. This is probably because this part of the glass has been warmer most of the time, especially in summer. More water evaporated here and it was a lot drier. Also a result of this side facing the window is more light, which resulted in a lot more plant growth on this side, but more on that later. The moss that was growing on top of the soil in the plant pot seems to have almost completely died. But the moss itself didn't. It's actually now growing in the little dish under the plant pot. There's still some living moss hanging from the edge of the pot, but it's mostly growing here, accessing the nutrients from the soil in the pot. There's even some moss growing out of the terracotta dish itself, using it as a substrate, which is pretty cool. It's a bit difficult to see, unfortunately, because the glass is quite dirty, but I hope you can somewhat make it out. The dish is now a fuzzy green living thing. From the way the moss is growing, you can see the jar had the same orientation for quite a while, growing almost horizontally towards the window in some places. Behind the plant pot, which is again really difficult to see, there's even more moss growing, probably because it's darker and wetter, which mosses like. And again, for some reason, it stopped growing here. Now for the plants. Here we have the coffee plant. it's doing just fine. There's a lot of dead material, but also a lot of healthy green leaves. The conditions in this closed ecosystem are far from ideal for this plant, but good enough. And here we have the Iraceme herbsii, the blood leaf, which is actually kinda doing great, having grown towards the glass. All the leaves you see are from the blood leaf. It also grew towards the top of the jar here, and we can see something interesting. Every leaf here is from the blood leaf, even the really small leaves, which there are a lot of. Normally this plant doesn't produce such leaves, and certainly not this many. They're looking quite different from normal leaves of this plant. They're also much greener than usual. As the name suggests, this plant usually grows red leaves. Though I must say this individual already had quite green leaves when I added it to the jar. Some of the lowest leaves still kinda look like the original leaves. It's really cool to see that the plant is totally adapting to its environment, both with the shape of the leaves as well as all the aerial roots. Here you can see the coffee plant a bit better and the red stems of the blood leaf. Both these plants almost completely died in the past, and yet they're still here. This part of the glass is almost acting like a
Y'all, I ain't gonna lie, bro. I clicked on this thing thinking I'm finna see some magnificent. I'm not seeing too much crazy. I ain't gonna lie. Oh, hold on. Okay, probably it got a little interesting. Don't blame me. Shut up. I'm just like y'all. Y'all saying the same thing. Shut up.
which is way more pleasing in my book. While filming, I suddenly noticed a lot of these tiny black stringy structures. I thought I'd never seen them before, but rewatching the old footage, I did notice that they were here before. There's much more of them now though. Now I hear you ask, what are these? Well, how should I know? Wow, relax guys, it's just a video about some dirty old jar. No, just kidding, I'm curious as well because I do not know. They can be seen throughout the entire jar. My best and most of all only guess is that these are strings of springtail poop. But that would mean the springtails produced huge logs, because look at how small these cuties are. Oh, that's right, the springtails are totally still here, doing little springtail dances. Aren't they just the best? Just look at them go!
This may be the last ad you ever see, because with the free ad block extension from Capital One Shopping, you can say goodbye to ads on...
I guess one difference between the algae slime and actual plants is that the springtails can feed on the algae much easier, which is a good thing I guess. And the jar is completely filled with these tiny six-legged animals, which is great news for all of us springtail lovers, oh yeah. These two seem to be on a special mission, just look at that speed.
Bro, I'm 14 minutes in. I just I don't what. Am I gonna put this out? I don't know, bro. Hold on, bro. Gotta be something else. Talking about springtails. The jar got dirty. No disrespect, but bro, ain't not really, not for real. Okay, guys. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Don't eat me alive in the comments or whatever the heck. I just wanted this. I thought this was gonna be something crazy.